We've moved from sanitation to water and sanitation, and I suppose water and sanitation are quite familiar brother and sister topics. Now we're going to push out a little bit further into the solution provider space, and we're going to talk about the circular economy. And we're going to do that in a session in two parts. Partly about the food and agricultural sector, building on the work that we've been doing in that area. And you heard there from Anna Chilton from Camellia, one of our project member companies who we've been working with this year. And I've got three other panelists I'll introduce you to in a moment on the food side. And then we're going to switch gears in the middle of this one and talk about the circular economy in consumer goods, more around consumer products, plastics, and so forth. So this is a session in two parts. But let me introduce our panelists. Jagjeet Kandal here on my immediate right heads up the Amalgamated Plantations business, which is, I think, the second biggest tea grower in India, 25 plantations, and the plantations associated with the Tata group. Of course, Tata are our members. And on my left here we have Vikram Singh, who himself was for many years a general manager running tea plantations, but is now the regional manager for the Ethical Tea Partnership, who are our partners in the work that we've been doing in the tea industry. So we have an operator of the agricultural business. We have somebody who has been an operator and is now taking a broader role at a sectoral level. If I take a step further than that, we have Jitendra Mandrah, who's from global GAP, so that's the global, the world's biggest farm assurance scheme. So this is a global scheme operating right around the world, which supports certification of food safety and sustainability in farming, so across many agricultural sectors. And then our final speaker, who we'll come to in the second part, familiar face with the toilet board, Pete Dulcamara. I don't know if you know this, but Kimberly-Clark would claim that of the 8 product categories in which they operate, 5 of those, they invented the category. Right, now that's a stunning statistic. Apple computers can't claim even that. So what a wonderful company to be the chief scientist of. I mean, it must be one of the most innovative companies you could imagine, and Pete is the chief scientist of Kimberly-Clark. So that's our panel, but we'll do the food bit of this first, and then we'll come to Pete later on the circular economy. Now, a little word about the toilet board circular economy and where that fits into the sanitation economy. When the toilet board was formed and began to identify the business domains in which this new view of sanitation would develop, right from the start, the circular economy emerged as one of the topic areas, and that's how I became involved, and it's been great to see this thinking evolve over the last 4 years. You can pretty much plot that path on the carts outside with the reports. You'll see a circular economy report from 2016 where we first set out the possibility. From 2017 we worked with the accelerator companies in Africa, began to look at energy and compost and the different business models they have there. And then last year we began to do our work in agriculture with the tea sector, and we've further developed that this year in Africa as well. So this has been an emerging part of the toilet board's agenda. And I think my favorite sort of account of that I heard was from one of our entrepreneurs in Ghana, who simply said it's all about second-hand tomatoes. So you have second-hand tomatoes in the sense that things fall on the ground in the farm and are in some way recycled within the farming system. You have second-hand tomatoes that are dropped in the shop or nobody buys them and they're left at the end of the day. You have second-hand tomatoes in your kitchen, you chop things up, and then you have the second-hand tomatoes that actually you ate and they go into the toilet. And so the circular economy for sanitation is a lot about the idea that it's all just second-hand tomatoes, and how can we get those flows of nutrients and water and get the nutrients back onto the soil. So that's the story that we've been developing. So let me turn to our colleagues in the agricultural space first of all, and I simply want to start by asking them, why sanitation matters to them, and in particular, why does this circular approach that we're talking about, which generates nutrients and energy and water, why is that of interest, and give some examples of what they've been doing in that area. So, Jagjeet, can I start with you?
So I'm going to just try and set a little context so that people understand what a tea garden is, right? So Amalgamated Plantations is 28,000 hectares of land, out of which 14,000 hectares is under tea, right? On these plantations, I have 150,000 people living. And this is 4 generations of people living there. We look after people from womb to tomb. They get born there, they work with us, they retire with us, and they pass on the property, right? Now, this sort of a thing brings its own challenges. So we are an ecosystem by ourselves, very little government intervention. Everything is looked after by the plantations, housing, schooling, medical, workways, everything. Now, taking that into play is where sanitation comes into, for us, very, very important. So we have 18,000 families, which means 18,000 houses, and which means 18,000 toilets, and a whole lot of resource which is currently getting wasted. And that's where I think, as far as APPL is concerned, sanitation and the way forward really, really matters for us. And we are looking at what we can do through this whole program of going the next step and actually using a whole lot of resource which is currently getting just wasted into the ground and actually harming many, many things along the way.
Great, thank you. So let me come to Vikram. So you've heard the answer from an operator. Let's broaden this out. Now you're at a sectoral level now with tea. So why is sanitation important to you, and why does the circular economy? Oh, we have another mic. Very good. Why does the circular economy matter in your approach?
I think if we look at the sector, tea sector as such, we are talking about, if we take just Assam, overall we are talking about 405,000 hectares of tea. If we look at Assam, which contributes to around 57%, where we focus primarily, it's almost 231,000 hectares. Well, that's a massive, covering a population of 2.6 million people, directly affecting the lives of females, around 1.3 million women of female population. So huge impact. And I think sanitation matters because it has impact, I think, and all the more so in tea gardens, because there have been some historical reasons for the situation about sanitation, what it is on the tea estates. And then there are legislative issues which were there, health issues. So I think there are many issues. We can take a whole day to speak about it, but in a nutshell, it's very important when we talk about the gender, when we talk about the female population, in the way their dignity matters. And we are talking about a component in the industry. I would say in any industry, if you see the dignity of that segment which contributes to the maximum to their revenues is the highest. They are on the highest pedestal. But here the women, the dignity when it comes to getting access to good toilet facilities. I think over a period, over last few years, if we see, we have seen quite a bit of change in the number of toilets that have been constructed under the Swachh Bharat mission. But there's a lot that needs to be done to actually, I was very happy to see today the government's initiative about moving from CDF to CDF Plus. But I think there's a lot that needs to be done. There's a huge opportunity here. When we talk of really we can bring about a difference in the way it can impact the businesses. We are talking, just to give you a small, you asked about the circular economy. I think one component which I will say, there is whatever this we call the waste resource, it has a ready captive market within the business. And if I just convert in Assam itself, we are talking about no less than around $77 million worth of coal that is utilized in the tea industry in Assam alone. Forget rest of India. South India I'll discount because mostly quite a bit of firewood is used. So there's a massive opportunity there to convert that into something which can be more sustainable. Yep.
Great, Vikram, thank you. So we've gone from the operator to the sector. Now let's look at the whole of agriculture, Jitendra. From your point of view with Global Gap, tell us about why sanitation matters within your world, and can you see a relevance of the circular approach from your perspective?
So, good morning, everyone. Basically, just I want to say that Global Gap, that organization is developing a standard for good agriculture practices. And then in our good agriculture practices, we can see in the part of that food safety is the major concern, and then environmental, and then health welfare. It means our all employees, they are working. So then last 20 years, we are developing a standard. We are just finding challenges and how we can mitigate there. So in their whole terms, that sanitation is the very, very important part. Why? First thing, that on the farm, we can see we require that, it means our labor, they are working there, but at least they are picking some fruits and vegetables from the part. So ultimately, we need to maintain the sanitation and as well as food hygiene. And then also on farm, we require that toilet. If we are not providing that kind of facility, so ultimately our food may be contaminated. So there is a very, very key challenges that our food safety. And then if we comes on the traceability part, that there is a many standard or many indicators we are developing, that how we can just, it means cover that whole sanitation program. And then if we comes on our processing unit, so ultimately there is also required. And then in terms of the retail chain, they are also key interest to that, how it means Global Gap, they can implement that all kind of standard in our farm or our supply chain, how they can strong there. And then by their way, they can communicate to their customer that we are maintaining that all kind of process, and then our food is safe, first thing. And second thing, ultimately, they can just save their brand value, because then it is very, very important part there. Every brand like that, we can take an example that Walmart, Nestle, or it means in India that KRBL, Big Basket, they are more focused on their brand. So ultimately, they can protect with the help of sanitation their brand, and they can serve a better produce to their customer. So that is the very, very important part. In the agriculture sector, it means we can say very major force. And then in terms of Global Gap, we are more focused on that all kind of a sanitation, how we can manage there. So as from the Global Gap side, it is very, very important. And then maybe we can say it is kind of opportunity also, that in India, that we are going to unorganized sector to organize. So ultimately, if we are selling that organized sector, our retail industry, day by day, it is increasing. So how they can serve, or how they can market their produce among the big country. So ultimately, if they have maybe they are doing such kind of their standard or their sanitation, so ultimately they can say that we are following these kind of process. So ultimately, their customer will love to buy this produce. So that is the major impact for by the following sanitation. So that's from my side. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So what we're hearing here is the whole supply chain unfolding. You know, from growing the crops and providing the sanitation in the plantations through a sector that wants to develop and have a great reputation as a sector, through to the whole industry. And you heard Jitendra talking about retailers and brands and food safety and so forth. So that's where this has to end. It has to work as an end-to-end system. It's not done in the service of sanitation, but sanitation can be part of the system if it's done in the right way. So it's not easy, but think of the kind of prize that brings. What I'd like to do is just go around the same three gentlemen again, just very quickly. I mean, one challenge perhaps that you see with this and what you would do about it, but I mean, just kind of one particular thing that you feel is a success factor that we need to work on. Jagjeet, what about you?
Before that, I just wanted to say, that one of the things which we've already seen is we've started seeing some benefits come out of the sanitation change, which has already happened in the last 3 years. So APPL as a company became ODF free a year and a half ago. And I think one of the first things which we're seeing is our IMR and MMR rates are actually today below the national average. The tea industry was not known for this 5 years ago, but so it's already started to show on our health indicators. And I think that's the first one, because people are using toilets more today. Availability is better and they're using it. So, if you tick off the 3 pillars of sustainability of your people, planet and profit, you've actually touched the planet and the people part. I think time now and coming to where we're talking about, Sandy, is now to get onto the profit side of it, and how do we turn this into profit. I think the challenge which I see there, and we've done a study in the tea estates with TBC for the last 1 year of, what are the opportunities for us there, and that study has very clearly shown us that there is a huge opportunity of converting this resource into a profit part of sustainability. However, I think the biggest challenge which we see in Assam, and I think it's more to do with where we are, is that we still do not have models, we do not have a proof of concept. We have not been able to touch with entrepreneurs who can actually come up and do this stuff on the ground. So while in theory we know that all this can be done, we need to be able to practically prove this on ground so that businesses like ours can then put their money where their mouth is. And unfortunately it's a cat and mouse kind of a thing, So while all the paper says that, but I do need a model to start looking at it, and thereby then be able to convince our respective boards and private sector to actually put it. One of the things, as Vikram said very clearly, we have a huge advantage in the tea sector, is that we are actually also will be the users of any byproduct which comes out of it. And literally when I say any, it means any. If it could be electricity, it could be biogas, it could be briquettes, it could be fertilizer. So you talk of any conversion from the waste into a product, actually we are sitting with a market for that. So I would really urge entrepreneurs who are in this room, partners of TBC, to, I've got my hand up, just give us a call, visit us, and actually I would say visit us and see for yourselves what's possible. It's very easy to be able to, on a phone call talk, but I don't think we can give you a sense of the opportunity. And believe me, there's a huge business opportunity waiting for you there.
Well done. Well, you could not have a clearer invitation than that, could you? That sanitation is wanted by the food industry. And this particular gentleman leading a chunk of the food industry wants sanitation people to come and help him, right? So isn't that wonderful? And in a moment, we're going to hear a little bit more from Jagjeet and one of his Tata colleagues about the next stage of the work with Tata. So this is a door that is wide open, ladies and gentlemen, to the entrepreneurs who are here. So let me just stay with my question briefly, and then we'll do that Tata announcement. A challenge, Vikram, what would you say? Let's be fairly brief at this point.
Yep. I think the biggest challenge is it's not that the tea industry has not made, it's over 100-year-old industry, and they have been continuously investing money into the sanitation, developing the sanitation facilities. And it's a huge cost on their balance sheet as well as profit and loss treatment. But what is happening is, I think there is a lack of innovative solutions, exactly how to look for that value addition now. If we can have people, I think this sort of what I'm seeing, what I've been hearing since morning, there is a lot of opportunity. But how do we bring this all together to create something which is more useful, to actually harness that potential which exists there? So this technological inputs or people coming and providing solutions. I'll just tell you why I'm particularly so keen on technology. I was actually discussing with the Labour Minister in Assam, and he was very keen that if we could come up with some innovative solutions. So if there is a model, I am sure if many minds sit together and can do something about it, there's a
Fantastic.
Real need.
Okay. Jitendra, from your side, what do you see as a challenge, and what should we do about it?
Like that, from the global gap point of view, if we are going to talk about any farmer that please implement that global gap standard, So immediately he can reply, oh, Jitendra, maybe that you are from Global Gap. So ultimately your standard is that means we need to develop a toilet in the field. So maybe it is kind of a big challenge. But wherever in India like that, we can take an example that we have almost 10,000 growers and almost 35,000 that all fruits and vegetables. So everyone that follow the, it means all sanitation, all standard. But kind of a challenge is, why they are following, because then their buyer is demanding. That it means kind of a mindset. They are, it means rest of the other farmer, why they are not following? Because then maybe it is kind of a cost. So who can bear that cost? Might be, if maybe some retailer can say, okay, I can take care of your cost, but who will prove that they all kind of a process, it is authenticity and trustworthy. So ultimately kind of a certification or audit cost, it is a kind of a cost. So we are also finding, it means expecting that might be, we can find out some IT tool, they can just, it means monitor there, or they can suggest to that kind of a process they are follow, and then kind of a trust and integrity we need to develop there. So then this is a kind of a challenge, that it means audit process. Implementation, yes, it is okay, but it means kind of an audit process or integrity that we need to, this is kind of a big challenge. So we need to kind of a solution. Maybe IT company, they can give that kind of a solution, because then they have a many tools that geotagging might be some picture, such kind of that ideas already we are putting with the IT company. Maybe in future they can develop. Also, we already talked with government body and many retailer, many stakeholder. So everyone willing to do, but it means ultimately everywhere is cost. So how they can, it means mitigate that cost. So cost, it means how they can communicate this message to the market. So ultimately, if they are communicating that process in the market, so ultimately market can respect there. And ultimately European market, they are willing to that, and they are paying some kind of a premium. So that kind of a challenges, and then how we can mitigate there. We are expecting that solution from maybe all kind of a stakeholder here. Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, thank you to the three for the answers. So in this context of the food work and our agriculture work, we're continuing to move forward. And if Divyang is here from Tata Trust, Divyang, are you? Here we are. And Jagjeet, do you want to just sort of grab the two microphones, and you guys have something to tell the audience. So I'll leave you to make your announcement.
So I think we're very happy here to be able to announce that to take forward this whole project about circular economy, sanitation, proof of concept in the tea estates. There's been a partnership which has just been inked between Tata Trust, Tata Global Beverages and Amalgamated Plantations with a project called Project Jalodhari, and that is actually going to fund this first proof of concept for the sanitation. I'd ask Divyang to give you a little more brief on that.
Sure. Thanks. So we have been talking about the circular economy since last 2.5 days, and also we thought, I think it's important that we need to develop a proof of concept to look at the scale. Now, when we actually did the preliminary feasibility with the tea garden, we found that it's very interesting that there is a controlled environment, there is a land, there is a labor, there is a community available, and there is a huge resource, specifically the waste, both biodegradable waste and other waste which is being used as a part of the industry source. We thought it's a good combination to look at in terms of availability of a resource in the right quantity, which can be converted to meet the local requirements, be it in energy or as a fertilizer. So as a part of that, we thought of, I think, let's look at some kind of integrated development program. So we designed a program looking at the water, sanitation and hygiene, all the three elements. And sanitation is going to be a very interesting piece of that project, because it's going to not only looking at the kind of ensuring the 100% waste needs to be recycled or maybe treated and used as a kind of a resource for that particular tea estate. So we actually keep our fingers crossed. We got a very good, some interesting models available, which we are going to execute over a period of next 9 months to a year. And I think maybe over a period of next year, we'll be able to share some learnings to the larger audience to look at the tea industry to take it forward as a part of a scale, and if possible, the government could take it as a part of other industry experiences. That would be very, very useful, and we are quite exciting to start off this relationship. And the TBC has been providing quite a good technical support, specifically Sandy. I think you have been kind of a pillar to push this thinking process. So thanks to you, and looking forward to the collective learning process over a period of next year. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you.
Sandy, I'm going to put out one more challenge to entrepreneurs here. You know, in any business model, raw material is never free, right? Here we're talking of a resource material which is free. Can we look at a model where you actually pay for the raw material, which is the best incentive you will get people to come and use the toilets? So just a thought process, and let's see if that can be taken forward.
Wonderful. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Divyang, for joining us. So you see the food and agriculture part of this story evolving here. We've also had Unilever involved. We've also had Tailors of Harrogate as project members. So it's working on a tea industry basis. But let's close the food part with the most global ideas that you could possibly have. I just clicked. Got to have the next slide. Here we are. So this is a weird graphic here. It talks about non-conventional waters. Does anybody know what a non-conventional water is? Well, this is the UN Food and Agriculture Organization getting its head around the idea that obviously water is really important to agriculture, but the water can't just come out of the sky. It needs to come from all kinds of different sources, otherwise there just isn't enough water. And they held a conference last week in Madrid, which I attended and spoke on behalf of the Toilet Board. And there's a lovely Brazilian guy called Marlos de Souza, who was going to be here, but his boss has sent him to some other conference instead. Clearly a bad prioritization, but nevertheless, that was their choice. But Marlos very kindly has done a little video for us to give his views on the subject we're talking about. Can we run the video, please?
Well, when you are talking about circular economy and agriculture, if you think about agriculture as a resource-intensive activity, so especially for inputs, and getting water as one of those inputs, and fertilizer as another input in this process, they are the most useful or the biggest needs of agriculture that we have, water and fertilizers. So when you get the concept of circular economy and talking about, for example, the reuse of treated wastewater in our case, is where you can apply this vision and this concept of bringing together reuse of water that has been used for some other human activities, for example, in our everyday lives, and then getting together with the part of sanitation and treating the water to be in a way that can be reused by agriculture, where the nutrients they are left behind. So nowadays that we do have the high-level treatment system that we can even remove the nutrients out of the water. But in this case, we are going back, to universities and to schools and telling the engineers now that instead of removing them, we prefer that we leave them there, the nutrients, that we can reuse those nutrients back in agriculture. If we do it, we are saving a lot of money for the farmer, so he doesn't need to buy fertilizer or to invest his money on fertilizer anymore. So he can reuse the fertilizer that's available in the water. And I think we're getting agriculture to be a little bit more sustainable than what we have today, because they'll be using less inputs coming from the resource that we have available on the planet. So I think the concept of circular economy is really, really applicable to the agricultural activities nowadays. So, and then getting to sanitation. So what we see today as a discussion in our symposium, for example, is the use of non-conventional waters as treated wastewater. So treated wastewater means that we need to use what has been used before for other human activities, as I said. And one is sewage. So providing sanitation to people is a plus, we know all the benefits. But providing sanitation to people has the double plus, as I say, which is going to provide a new resource to agriculture. So sanitation and will be the source of this new water and the new nutrients for agriculture to be reusing it in another phase of human activities. So I cannot disconnect sanitation to wastewater reuse in agriculture. So if we're really pushing, the industry and pushing the governments to improve the policies they have in place, to bring together or to increase or accelerate implementation of treatment schemes and reuse of treated wastewater in agriculture, we need the source of wastewater to be treated, and the source is sanitation.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The source is sanitation. So we thought we were at the end of the pipe, but in the circular economy, we're the source of what comes next, which is potentially the food industry. So let's turn just for a few minutes, and Pete here is going to be under a little bit of time pressure. I apologize, Pete, for doing it that way, but let's turn away from food to another aspect of the circular economy. So we have Kimberly-Clark with a range of consumer products that we're familiar with. Like any business, you want to grow. And you've been thinking about some of the challenges of growing in developing markets, which leads us back to the story of the circular economy. But tell us about that, Pete.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Hey, hello, everybody. Actually, first, I've got a question for all of you. Why do we even care about the circular economy? I mean, it seems like the linear industrial economy has been serving us pretty good for the last 200 years. Created this hotel, the food that you ate, the clothes that you're wearing, the iPhone that you have, the plane that you rode to get here. So what's wrong with this industrial linear economy that we have? And we have 7 billion people on the planet today, and most of the people on the planet that are living today are living better and longer than the people 200 years ago. So what's wrong with the linear economy? The problem is that we're headed to a world of 10 billion people. And when all 10 billion people have the same standard of living as you and me, we're going to need 3 planet Earths to have enough water, energy, and materials. And we only have 1 planet Earth. And nature's been at this for 3.8 billion years. In nature, one species' waste is another species' food. And it's a real opportunity for us to learn from nature and to bring that to industry to use the circular economy. And so why do we care about the circular economy as Kimberly-Clark? Well, we have a strategy to grow our personal care products in developing and emerging countries all around the world. The problem is D&E markets don't have the sanitation infrastructure to handle single-use plastics. And you've all seen the great garbage patch in the Pacific Ocean. It's half the size of India, weighs about the same as 43,000 cars. There's 2 trillion pieces of plastic in the ocean. By 2050, there'll be more plastic in the ocean than fish. And the problem with plastic is it never goes away. Polypropylene's only been around for 100 years. No species on the planet has evolved to eat it. So plastic just continues to get smaller and smaller. Just walking on this stage with my plastic shoes on this nylon carpet, I sheared off pieces of plastic into the air, and we all just breathed it into our lungs. There's not an ounce of food you eat, an ounce of beverage you drink, an ounce of air you breathe that doesn't contain plastic. Every one of us eats 5 grams of plastic per week, about the size of a credit card. Every week, we consume a credit card's worth of plastic. Now, plastic is finally getting at the dimensionality that it can enter the tight junctions of cells. Now, tight junctions of cells are only designed to let water, ion, and dextran into those cells. We now have plastic in our blood, in our cells, of every living organism on the planet. Now, nature's way is extinction's the rule, survival's the exception. And so we need to embrace the circular economy to address this issue. And as Kimberly-Clark, we believe that every consumer on the planet loves the convenience of a disposable product, but they hate the waste and the guilt of throwing it away. So what are we doing about it? First off, what we're doing is we're eliminating or reducing the amount of plastic in our products and our packaging. We're developing naturally derived polymers to replace synthetic plastic. Instead of using hydrocarbons from petroleum, let's use carbohydrates from plants to make our polymers. We're looking at how we make our polymers more degradable and biodegradable and marine degradable. And most importantly, we're looking at how do we make our products and packaging more recyclable and to become part of the circular economy. We really believe there's gold in them, their diapers. You know, how do we extract nutrients from our diapers and materials and energy and the human microbiome and stem cells from menses in our fem pads to really create more value. We see more value in a used product than a new product. And that's what the circular economy is all about. And so I guess I have a challenge for all of you, and actually would love some help from the entrepreneurs in the audience. You know, in logistics, it's all about the last mile. In the circular economy, it's all about the first mile. How do we get the products and put them into a circular economy so that we can use the materials over and over again and really learn something from what nature has taught us over the last 3.8 billion years?
One of the things to remember is that, it's back to the second-hand tomatoes point in a way, is that the entrepreneurs we're working with, almost all of them who are processing biological waste are not just processing what we call toilet resources, they're also processing other biological waste. So one of the thoughts here is, what about compostable stuff generally, not just food waste? What about compostable products of different kinds? And so one of the thoughts as we build up the sanitation economy is, are we building a sanitation system or are we building a biological waste system? It's something that the West never built. We built our sewers and then we didn't really get any of the other biological waste lined up, but we could do that differently in some of the emerging markets. So that there's potentially a really interesting opportunity. So here, okay, so we've seen the solution provider lean into water and climate change, food, plastics, and now we're going to move on to the next panel. John Lane and his crew are going to come up, and we're going to talk about health and human rights, I believe. So thank you very much to the panelists. Thank you.